Hello and welcome back to History Talk, the show where we talk about history. Obviously, it's the title. Today we're going to be talking about Northern Ireland and what exactly the Apprentice Boys' activities were during the Troubles. So, let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to History Talk. So today we're going to be talking about what exactly the Apprentice Boys were doing during the Troubles. So, following the violence in August 1969, both the annual marches of the Apprentice Boys were banned for the next 2 years. Marches were held between 1972 and 1974, but on a much smaller scale than previously. They were confined to the present waterside area on the east bank of the River Foyle. So, as well, I guess you could say, as they should have done originally, they were not supposed to be going into Catholic areas. Now, in August 1973, there was the bombing of the Walker Testimonial. So what this was this had formed a part of the Apprentice Boys commemorations before the banning of the parades. It was viewed by the Nationalist community as a symbol of Unionist dominance in Derry, and what happened was the IRA bombed it. So the custom of burning an effigy in Lundy every December was eventually moved to Bishopsgate in the city. Then there was the commemoration of the Siege of Derry. From 1975, the Apprentice Boys were allowed to march in the small area of the walled city. In 1969, commemorations of the tercentenary or 300-year anniversary of the Siege of Derry were organised by the Derry City Council. This was in cooperation with the Apprentice Boys. The council was now under the majority control of nationalist politicians. Efforts were made to make the commemorations of the siege more inclusive by emphasising the historic event was part of a shared history between both Protestant and Catholic communities in Derry. Because while, yes, they were fighting against, well, they weren't fighting, but they were under siege by Catholic James's forces. Some of those forces were, of course, Protestants who just supported him because he was the king, and they didn't want to question the king, because obviously it's a bit weird to just question your king, and, just because of his religion, and it's not even just because it's not even his religion, it's his sub-religion, just he believes in slightly different rules to you. That's a bit of a weird thing to, essentially usurp a king over, or basically support a usurper. So, then there was also the fact that, people inside Derry were obviously, they were more Protestant than well, you could argue they were actually not more Protestant than Catholic, but, there were obviously some Catholics and there was some Protestants, so there's a mix between the two during that siege. So, it made clear that there should be a mix. Anyway, it was not permitted until 1995 that they were once again permitted to parade along the city walls in Derry. However, certain provocative customs, such as the throwing of coins towards the bog site, they'd been removed. Now, you might be thinking that the Apprentice Boys might have had bad press due to the fact that they had, in a sense, been one of the parties to spark the Troubles and spark a good deal of violence, looking hundreds of people dying here. But that was not accurate. In 1971, there were 178 Apprentice Boys clubs. But by 1989, that number had grown to over 200. The growth in numbers of joining Apprentice Boys clubs had increased in the frequency of parades that had been attributed to this wider feeling among the Unionist community being under threat by the Nationalist community since the outbreak of the Troubles. As some have pointed out, the loss of Unionist control of Derry City Council and a decrease in the number of Protestants living in Derry did lead to a feeling for Protestants to show Unionist solidarity. So there you have it. The conclusion of the Apprentice Boys. Almost since the Siege of Derry took place in 1969, the commemoration of this historic event, it has been an important way for the Protestant community in Derry to express their cultural identity. And that's fine. You know, the formation of the Apprentice Boys of Derry in the 19th century helped formalize the commemoration of the siege in a Protestant cultural tradition. However, that's all fine, but it's when you get to the next thing that it becomes a problem. Because the activities of the British Boys, they bring the organisation into conflict with the Catholic community in Derry. Before the outbreak of the Troubles in 1969, the Apprentice Boys parades were problematic. They were resented by the Catholic community. They were a symbol of Protestant control of Derry. In two key events relating to the outbreak of the Troubles, the Apprentice Boys played a significant role in antagonising and provoking the tensions that were already developing as a result of the growth of the civil rights movement and as a result of the issues of the government, not only Stormont, but local governments, being oppressive. And during the Troubles, tensions between Catholics and Protestants are obviously run even higher, and the activities of the Apprentice Boys were, well, you know, wisely enough, you could argue, or you might argue the other way and say it was not wise. You know, you could argue that actually made the Unionist feeling even worse, that the Apprentice Boys' activities were severely restricted. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, the advent of the peace process in the 1990s, the Apprentice Boys resumed in Derry. The parades were regulated by an independent parades commission, and it sets out rules about how these events were conducted. The organisation continued to exist as an important symbol of Protestant identity in Ulster as of the making of this video. So, hopefully you enjoyed our episode about this, the Apprentice Boys of Derry. In our conclusion, basically, it works like this. You could say that the Apprentice Boys were one of the key reasons why the Troubles happened and why there was this major issue with hundreds of people dying in both north and south of Ireland, and you would possibly be right. You could argue the Apprentice Boys were, you know, right in having their parades restricted, because of course that would have antagonized people further, and when you have a war on your hands, it's not a good idea to antagonize people who are like, well, I'm not going to join in this war because, you know, I don't like the fact people are dying. I don't think that's right. It's not a good idea to antagonize those people and say, you know, because what happens is, it's like what we'll talk in a further video. You know, we talked about where you've got Bloody Sunday. That drives the recruitment of the IRA up, and you don't want to do that because that is foolish. Anyway, hopefully you'll join us next time. Of course, this is a conclusion video, so it is a little bit shorter. So if you join us next time, we'll be looking at the basis for signing the agreement. So, yeah, then we'll be, you know, loads of stuff. If you want to subscribe, you know, or view other videos, we've got a bunch of other videos, you know, that you can do that. You can go ahead. And multiple other things. So hopefully you enjoy the video, and hopefully you will join us next time when we'll be looking at why exactly there was a need for political cooperation, the reasons behind it. So see you then, and goodbye.